My friends, let us come together in a spirit of deep stillness and receptivity, for the truth we are about to consider cannot be grasped through the intellect, nor can it be approached as one more idea added to our storehouse of beliefs. It must be felt within, recognized in the quietness of our own being. There comes a moment in the life of every seeker when the question of life and death, of the appearing and disappearing of form, stands before us not as theology, not as philosophy, but as direct experience. It is in this moment that the truth of our identity is revealed most clearly if we are willing to see it. We have, for centuries, regarded death as an enemy, as a dark and terrible event that closes the door upon all that we have known. Yet this fear has been born only of one mistake: the belief that life is in the body, that the body is the self, and that the dissolution of the physical form is the dissolution of our being. This, my friends, is the great misunderstanding. The body is not the life. Consciousness is the life. The I that I am is the life eternal. And when we begin to perceive this, even faintly, the fear of death begins to lose its power over us. In the final months of my earthly life, there was no battle with death, no desperate attempt to hold the body together, no appeal to an external God to preserve a form that was never the seat of identity. Instead, there was only the quiet recognition that the life which animates, sustains, and maintains itself as this awareness has no beginning and no ending. What appears as birth, what appears as death, these are movements within consciousness, but they do not touch the one who witnesses them. And so, as we enter this subject today, let us not approach it as though we were studying the end of something. We are studying the revelation of something. We are studying the moment in which the personal sense of life falls away and the presence that has always been there, the I that is God, itself expressing as individual consciousness, shines forth in its purity. We are studying the truth that stands behind the veil of appearances. Let your heart be at ease. We are not here to contemplate loss, but to recognize gain. We are not here to mourn the frailty of the form, but to witness the eternality of the formless. And as we proceed, let us hold this one simple truth before us. No one has ever died. Forms have come and gone. Bodies have appeared and disappeared. But the invisible presence, the I that is God, remains untouched, unchanged, eternally expressing itself as the life you are. When we see this clearly, the great fear dissolves, and it is in this dissolving that true freedom begins. My friends, let us look gently and honestly at this matter of fear. For fear is not conquered by force, nor is it dissolved by effort. Fear is dispelled only by light, by the recognition of what is eternally true. And nowhere is fear more deeply rooted in human consciousness than in the belief that life can be taken from us, that existence can be threatened, and that identity can come to an end. It is very important that we do not condemn ourselves for this fear. Even the most sincere spiritual seeker may find that when the sense world presses upon him with its testimony of pain, decline, or danger, an instinctive tightening arises. This is not a moral failing, nor is it proof that we have been unfaithful to truth. It is simply the residue of centuries of conditioning human belief accepted as reality long before we had awakened to the nature of our true being. The universal fear of death is not personal. It is not your fear or my fear. It is the collective fear of a world that has identified itself with the body, this temporary form, this garment of flesh, and has forgotten the invisible life that animates it. When we speak of death, we are really speaking of the belief that life is in matter, dependent upon matter, and vulnerable because matter is subject to change. Let us understand this clearly. Fear persists only where we still believe we are separate from the source of life. Fear lives only in the conviction that we are self-contained, isolated beings struggling to preserve our existence. But the very moment we glimpse even faintly that the life we are living is not personal life but God life, not human existence but divine expression, that fear begins to lose its footing. Many spiritual seekers wonder, why, after all my study, all my meditation, all my spiritual practice, does fear still arise when the body is threatened? The answer is simple. The surface mind has accepted the truth, but it has not yet permeated the deeper levels of conditioning. We may intellectually declare, I am eternal, yet still reflexively behave as though the body were our life. These two layers must become one. And so I say to you with tenderness, do not be discouraged when fear appears. Fear appearing is not a sign of spiritual failure, it is an invitation to deeper recognition. It is the opportunity to turn once again to the truth that the life you are is not in the body, nor is it subject to the changes that touch the body. Fear arises only because we have momentarily forgotten who we are. And the moment we remember, truly remember, not as a belief but as a simple recognition, fear dissolves, not because we have pushed it away, but because there is nothing left in us for it to cling to. Every fear is a shadow of forgotten truth, and death is the greatest shadow of all. But when the light of I Am dawns in consciousness, even this shadow cannot remain. Now, let us turn gently to that period in which the physical form known as Joel Goldsmith moved toward its conclusion. I speak of these things not to stir emotion, nor to create a story about a person, but to show you how the principles we study become living demonstration when appearances grow most intense. The outer scene of those final months was simple: a body in decline, symptoms increasing, strength diminishing, and the natural processes that accompany the closing of physical life making themselves known. To the human eye, this is the point at which fear rises most sharply. The world believes that when the body weakens, life weakens. When the body deteriorates, identity deteriorates. When the body comes to its end, the person comes to an end. But this is precisely the moment when the one who has lived in truth knows that none of this touches the reality of being. During those days, there was pain, there was limitation, there was what the world calls terminal illness. But listen carefully. There was no personal sense of suffering, because the one who had spent a lifetime practicing the presence did not identify himself with the sensations of the body. He acknowledged them, yes, of course. Denial never plays a part in spiritual realization, but he did not take ownership of them. He allowed the body to be the body, the appearance to be the appearance, while resting in that quiet inner knowing, I am the life which is God. I am the presence that neither waxes nor wanes. I am the awareness in which this body appears, moves, and eventually dissolves. There was no attempt to force healing, no attempt to cling to physical continuity. Why? Because he understood the body to be an instrument useful for a time, then released when its function is complete. There is no tragedy in this, any more than there is tragedy in setting aside a garment that has become worn. The garment serves its purpose and is laid aside, but the one who wore it continues unchanged. And so the atmosphere around him in those days was one of quietness, not darkness, not fear, not dread quietness, a deep stillness that arises when the battle with appearances has ended, when consciousness no longer tries to control, improve, or preserve form, but simply beholds. Those who were near him reported no sense of struggle, no frantic searching for remedies, no pleading for intervention. There was only a soft resting in the presence that had guided his entire journey. That resting was not resignation, let us be clear. Resignation is a gesture of defeat. This was recognition. Recognition that the life which lived as Joel Goldsmith was never born into a body and could not be removed by the departure of a body. Recognition that the I which spoke through him from the beginning was the same I that existed before Abraham was, the same I that is the life of every individual who hears these words now. It is important to see the outer scene only as context, not as truth. The truth was in the stillness, in the non-reaction, in the peaceful abiding. The truth was in the refusal to accept the body's condition as a statement about identity. And in this way, even the final days of the physical form became a teaching not in words, but in demonstration. This is the opportunity every one of us has, not merely at the end of life, but every time the body or circumstances bear witness to change. The appearance is never the truth. The truth stands behind it as the silent, eternal presence that is our very being. Now, my friends, let us look more deeply at what was taking place during those final months, for this is where the real teaching lies. The outer appearance of a declining body is of no great significance. Bodies come and go, and they have done so since time began. What matters is the state of consciousness from which we meet these appearances. This is the entire secret of spiritual life, the recognition of the I that is eternal, even as the forms through which it expresses rise and fall in their appointed season. The inner practice in those days was the same practice that had been lived for decades. No new technique was introduced, no special meditation for the dying, no urgent prayer for deliverance. For truth does not change with circumstances. Truth is the same whether we are walking through a garden or lying upon a sick bed. And so the practice was simply this: resting in the awareness of I am. I am the presence that has no beginning and no ending. I am the life that is self-sustained and self-complete. I am the light that cannot be dimmed by shadows of material belief. I am the only identity anyone has ever had. In that recognition, there is no need to resist sensations, no need to argue with the body's condition, no need to attempt to shape appearances by thought. The mind grows very quiet, for it is no longer trying to control life. It is simply resting in life itself. This resting is not passivity. It is the highest form of activity, though it appears outwardly as stillness. It is the activity of divine awareness flowing without obstruction. It is the activity of truth dissolving the belief in a personal self. It is the activity of light, revealing that there is no darkness except the shadow cast by ignorance. During those days, there would be times when the body expressed discomfort, yet there was no inward tightening, no sense of this is happening to me. There was only the recognition. This, too, is an appearance in consciousness. It is not the truth of my being. And in that non-identification, suffering could not take root. Sensation may arise in the body, but suffering requires a me to suffer. And that me had long since been seen as an illusion. This is the heart of the inner practice, allowing everything to be as it is on the plane of appearance, while resting firmly in the knowing of what is true on the plane of reality. The spiritual student does not attempt to heal appearances. The spiritual student awakens to the truth behind appearances, and the truth is always this: the I that you are does not enter the body at birth, nor does it leave the body at death. The I that you are is the witnessing presence, not the form, witnessed. The I that you are is the life that lives itself, untouched by decay, untouched by endings, untouched by change. To rest in this recognition is to walk in the freedom of the sons of God. And it is this recognition, this silent, effortless recognition that carried the transition peacefully, naturally, and without fear. For when one abides in I am, there is no death to face, only a gentle releasing of the temporary form through which this infinite presence once expressed. This is not something reserved for a few. It is the natural heritage of every individual who turns within and acknowledges, I live, yet not I, but the Christ. This I am is the life that lives me. Let us go deeper now into this word immortality, for it is a term so often misunderstood. The world hears the word and imagines a personal life extended indefinitely, a human identity preserved eternally, or a body made indestructible by spiritual power. But, my friends, none of this is what immortality means in the life of the spirit. What is immortal is not the personality. What is immortal is not the human sense of self. What is immortal is not the body or the circumstances of our earthly journey. Immortality belongs only to that which was never born and therefore can never die. And so the first great revelation we must come to is this: there is no such thing as personal immortality. The person, as the world knows it, the name, the form, the accumulated history, has no continuity in spirit. The person appears in time and is dissolved in time, but the life that animates that person, the consciousness that shines through it, the presence that says I, that is eternal, that is the only immortality there is. When I speak of immortality, I speak of that which is alive right now as the awareness hearing these words. I speak of the one who is conscious of existing, yet whose existence does not depend upon the body, nor upon the world, nor upon any external condition. This I, this pure, unconditioned awareness, is the Christ, the Self, the infinite way. It does not begin at conception, nor does it end at death. It stands ever present behind all appearances. The purpose of spiritual living is not to preserve the body forever, but to awaken to the truth that the body is not the seat of your identity. In this awakening, fear dissolves, not because we have conquered death, but because we have seen that nothing real can die. What dies is the picture, what dies is the form, what dies is the mask through which the infinite has temporarily expressed, but the infinite itself remains unchanged. If you examine the great statements of the Master, you will find that he never identified life with the body. He said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. He said, before Abraham was, I am. He said, I am the resurrection and the life. These statements do not refer to a man. They refer to the eternal presence speaking through the man. The I am is the immortality of every individual. This is why, in those final days, there was no sense of loss, no anticipation of ending, no clinging to the form. There was only the recognition that the I which had lived the entire span of the human experience was the same I that lived before that experience began and would continue after that experience concluded. Immortality, then, is not something to be attained. It is not a reward. It is not a future state. Immortality is the present reality of your being. It is the truth that is already here, already complete, already expressing itself as the consciousness that is aware in this moment. You do not become immortal. You awaken to the immortality that has always been yours. The more clearly this truth is realized, the more gently we move through life, for all fear of loss is rooted in the belief that what we are can be diminished. And once that belief dissolves, a great peace arises, an unshakable peace, a peace not dependent upon circumstance. This is the immortality Joel Goldsmith revealed, not in theory, but in living demonstration. And it is this immortality that you, too, will feel. the moment you turn within and recognize, I am the life eternal, appearing now as this individual expression, yet untouched by all the changes on the surface of experience. As we move further into this sacred subject, let us turn our attention away from the outer picture of declining physical form and consider the inner experience, for the outer appearance of a dissolving body tells us nothing about the life that is living itself. Truth reveals itself not in what the senses behold, but in the awareness with which we meet the senses' report. And so, in those final months, the essential activity was not of the body, nor of the mind, but of consciousness resting in its own eternal nature. There were moments when the body spoke loudly, moments of discomfort, moments of fatigue, moments in which the natural processes of physical dissolution made themselves known. Yet even in these moments, there was no inner disturbance, for the one beholding these sensations was not identified with them. That is the great key. Sensations arose in the body, but there was no me in them. They appeared, they passed, and they had no power to create suffering because there was no personal self claiming them. This inner state was not produced through effort. It was not a discipline imposed upon the mind. It was the natural fruit of decades spent in the quiet recognition that I can of mine own self do nothing, and that the life which animates us is God, appearing as individual being. When one has lived from this recognition long enough, identity shifts. The personal sense of self dissolves little by little, and in its place arises the awareness of I am, the universal identity expressing as the individual. It is this shift that made possible the profound peace present in those final days. There was no internal conversation of why is this happening or how can I change this, for those questions belong only to the mind that believes itself separate. Instead, there was a simple and natural abiding. The body is doing what bodies do, but I am not the body. I am the life that witnesses the body. Some have imagined that spiritual mastery means the body should always respond instantly to truth, or that the physical form should be immune to decline. But this is a misunderstanding rooted in the belief that spirit exists to preserve matter. Spirit does not preserve matter. Spirit reveals itself through matter for a season in its own perfect way. And when that season is complete, spirit continues without interruption, without loss, without change. This is what was unfolding within. The inner experience was quiet, not dramatic, not filled with visions or heavenly signs. There were no triumphal declarations, no ecstatic revelations, just a deep, unbroken awareness of presence. A simple knowing, I am, I always have been, I always will be. The form may fade, but I do not. This simplicity is what many seekers overlook. They expect the spiritual path to culminate in great supernatural display, but true realization is not supernatural. It is utterly natural, so natural, in fact, that the world often misses it. It comes with no fireworks, only the gentle disappearance of fear, the quiet dissolution of resistance, the soft abiding in what has always been present. And so, as the body declined, the consciousness behind the form grew clearer, more transparent, more free. There was no clinging, because there was nothing to cling to. There was no fear, because there was no belief in separation from life. There was no sorrow, because what could be lost? The form? Yes. But the self? Never. This is what Goldsmith experienced internally. A deep continuity of being, unbroken by the appearance of bodily change. And you, too, may taste the same continuity, not by imitating an attitude, but by recognizing the truth that the I which lives you now is the same I that lived him, the same I that lives all. The body passes, but I am remains. Now, my friends, let us gently turn from the appearance of one man's transition and consider what this demonstration reveals about your own life, your own consciousness, your own journey on this path. For the significance of those final days lies not in the story of Joel Goldsmith, but in the light they shed upon the truth of your being. Every event in the life of a spiritual teacher holds meaning only to the degree that it awakens recognition within you. And so we ask, what does this reveal about the life you are living now? First, it reveals that the fear of death, the deepest fear known to humanity, is not dissolved by changing circumstances, but by changing identity. You do not overcome fear by adjusting the conditions of your human experience. You overcome fear only by recognizing that the one who seems to fear is not the one you truly are. When identity shifts from the personal self to the I am, fear naturally dissolves, because the I am cannot be threatened. Second, his passing shows us that your security has never depended on the body. Your safety, your continuity, your very existence do not rest upon the strength of your physical form. The body may be healthy or ill, young or old, vigorous or frail, but the life that animates it remains untouched. When you recognize this, truly recognize it, you begin to meet life's challenges with a calmness the world cannot understand. You begin to live from a place of stability that is not conditioned by the senses. Third, you discover that nothing in your experience is as serious as you once believed. When you look at your life from the perspective of eternal being, the troubles that once seemed overwhelming lose their weight. Financial pressures, relationship tensions, bodily discomforts. These remain the appearances they always were, but the sense of me that struggles with them begins to fade. You learn to let things arise and pass without being shaken, because you are centered in the awareness that beholds them. Fourth, you are shown that spiritual realization is practical. It is not something reserved for moments of meditation or spiritual ecstasy. It is not something to be attained in the final days of life. It is to be lived now in the midst of your daily responsibilities, your everyday interactions, your ordinary challenges. Every moment is an opportunity to rest in the truth that the life you are is not the life of the body, not the life of the personality, but the life of God expressing as individual being. Fifth, you learn that the transition called death is not a dramatic event. It is not a rupture in consciousness. It is not a moment of terror or sudden awakening. It is simply the continuation of the same life that is present right now. The consciousness you bring to this moment is the consciousness you bring to that moment. If you live now with fear, you carry fear into that transition. If you live now in recognition, you carry recognition. And so the true work is always here, always now. Finally, his passing teaches you that you are not walking toward a final moment of loss. You are walking toward the deeper unveiling of what you already are. Every day, every challenge, every joy, every sorrow, every appearance of change is part of the slow, gentle dissolving of the belief that you are separate from the source of your being. And as this belief fades, you begin to live differently. You become less reactive, more spacious, more compassionate, not because you try to be, but because the false sense of self is losing its hold. You see, the truth is very simple. The life that lived as Joel Goldsmith is the same life that lives as you. The same I that expressed through his form is expressing through your form. There are not many lives. There is only one life, one presence, one consciousness, appearing as many forms. His passing merely revealed in a clear and quiet way, the truth that has always been true for all. And when you recognize this, your own life begins to change, not because you adopt new beliefs, but because you awaken to the reality that has been present from the beginning. My friends, having contemplated the nature of immortality and the quiet clarity that accompanied those final days, let us now turn to the practical dimension of this teaching. For truth, to be truth, must be lived. It must permeate our daily experience. It must become the atmosphere through which we meet every appearance, whether joyful or challenging. And so the question arises, how do we approach our own mortality in the same spirit of peace and recognition? How do we prepare not for death, but for the continual unveiling of life? The first and most essential practice is the practice of silence without agenda. Sit quietly each day, even for only a few minutes, without asking, without desiring, without seeking to change any condition. Simply rest in the awareness that I am here. This silence allows the mind to sink beneath the turbulence of thought and touch the deep stillness in which the presence reveals itself, not because we call it forth, but because it is already here. This simple resting begins to loosen the belief that life is something we must manage or protect. Second, begin to see the body with new eyes. The body is not to be despised, nor feared, nor clung to. It is the instrument through which life expresses in this dimension for a season. You care for it naturally, the way one tends to a garden or maintains a home, but you do so without identifying with it. The body may change, but the eye that witnesses the change is unchanging. As you gently, repeatedly see the body as an appearance in consciousness rather than the container of consciousness, you begin to feel an inner freedom that no condition can shake. Third, allow fear thoughts to arise without resisting them. Do not make a battle of the mind. When fear appears, simply acknowledge, this too is a universal belief appearing in my awareness. Do not claim it as yours. Do not struggle with it. Let it pass as clouds pass through the sky. The sky is not disturbed by the clouds, and consciousness is not disturbed by thoughts unless we identify with them. In this way, fear loses its foothold. Fourth, develop the habit of returning again and again to the simple recognition of I am, not as a phrase, not as an affirmation, but as a lived awareness. In moments of stillness, feel into this presence. In moments of difficulty, remember it. In moments of joy, acknowledge it. The more often you return to this recognition, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it becomes spontaneous, effortless, automatic. And this is the beginning of living from the Christ within. Fifth, release the notion that you must purify the mind, perfect the personality, or perform great spiritual feats. The spiritual life is not a project. It is not a path of self-improvement. It is simply the steady relaxing of the false sense of self until the true emerges in clarity. You do not build the Christ identity. You uncover it, and you uncover it by doing less, not more. Sixth, contemplate often the truth that whatever can die was never you. This contemplation need not be morbid or heavy. It is liberating. Let the thought arise in simplicity. If this body were to fall away this very moment, would the witnessing presence disappear with it? And immediately you will feel the answer, no, I remain. You experience this every night when the body sleeps. You experience it in deep silence when the sense of me disappears. You experience it in moments of awareness when there is no thinker, only presence. Finally, recognize that the preparation for death is simply the preparation for life. There is no special practice for the final day. There is only the daily recognition of truth until the fear-based identity dissolves. Whether you are young or old, healthy or facing illness, the work is always the same. Return to the I am. Rest in the presence. Let the personal sense diminish. Let the eternal self reveal itself. In this way, you approach mortality not as a fearful event, but as a gentle transition, no more significant than the passing of one season into another. When that moment comes, it will be met with the same peace, the same unbroken awareness, the same recognition that guided every step of your life. For the one who knows the I am does not prepare for death. He abides in life, and life continues. My friends, let us come now to a gentle close, and as we do, I would invite you to rest not in thought, not in theory, but in the quiet awareness that is present even now, even here. For everything that has been shared, every truth that has unfolded, every glimpse into the eternal nature of your being has had but one purpose: to lead you home to the awareness of the presence that lives you. There is no journey to complete. There is no finish line to reach. There is no distant spiritual attainment awaiting you in some far-off future. What you seek, you already are. The life you have feared losing has never been yours to lose, for it is not personal life. It is the infinite expressing itself as individual consciousness, one life, one being, one I. When we look upon the transition called death, we do not look upon an ending. We look upon a passing of form, a shedding of the temporary garment. But you, the witnessing presence, are not touched by it. You are the same before, during, and after. The form may fall away, yes, but the life that animates the form does not fall away. It simply withdraws from one appearance and continues, unbroken, as it always has. And so the truth is this: you are not moving toward death. You are moving moment by moment into deeper recognition of life. You are not approaching a point of darkness. You are moving toward the dawning of your own eternal nature. Every fear, every challenge, every moment of stillness, every step on the path, these are not random events. They are invitations, each one calling you to rest more deeply in the I that is God. Let your heart be at peace. You are not fragile. You are not temporary. You are not a creature struggling to survive in a dangerous world. You are the very presence of God, made visible as individual being. You are the light of the Christ, the awareness of I am, appearing here, appearing now, expressing itself in the unique form that the world calls you. The body is a beautiful instrument. Use it, care for it, cherish it while it serves its purpose, but do not mistake it for your life. Let it come, let it go, let it change, let it rest. Through all of this, you remain the silent, watching, eternal self. If you do nothing else as a result of these words, let it be this: turn within each day, even for a moment, and recognize the presence that lives you. Let that recognition become your refuge, your strength, your peace. For in that recognition lies the end of fear, the end of struggle, the end of the belief in separation. In that recognition lies your freedom. And when the time comes for this form to be released, it will not be a moment of terror. It will be a moment of surrender into the very life that has carried you from the beginning. You will recognize it not as the end, but as the continuation of what has always been. The presence that lives you now will live you then. The I that is aware now will be aware then. The life that you are will simply flow into a new expression. Rest, then, in the assurance that nothing real can be lost, nothing eternal can be threatened, and you are eternal. I am is your name. I am is your identity. I am is your immortality. And in that I am, we are one.